As I'm making this video, it's been less than 24 hours since Apple held their annual WWDC keynote, and we now know exactly what features we can expect in iOS 18 when it arrives in a few months' time. I've downloaded and installed the developer betas on a few of my devices and have had some time to play around with it. And so in this video, I wanted to share with you the 10 things that I'm most excited about coming in iOS 18 based on what I've been able to play around with so far. Now, it is really important to remind you that this is the developer beta that I'm using here, so this video is a preview of what's coming. Don't expect your device to be able to do any of this unless you also download the beta, and you do so at your own risk, of course. These can be notoriously unstable. The features that I'm showing you here will be available on compatible devices most likely in September. Also in this video, I'm going to specifically focus on the features of iOS 18 and not look at any of the AI or Apple Intelligence features. I'm going to talk about those in a separate video. Okay, let's get into it. A long-awaited feature has arrived on Apple Messages, and that's the ability to send a message at a later date and time. Now, I'm someone who unfortunately uses WhatsApp over iMessage because everyone in the UK uses WhatsApp, so this isn't going to be something that I'll get a huge amount of use out of, but it's definitely a cool feature, although it wasn't as intuitive to get this to work as I thought it would be. You'll notice that when you create a message in iMessage now, there is this A button to the right of the menu bar, and this is your formatting option where you can choose from the usual text formatting like bold, italic, underline, and strike through, as well as a number of text effects like shake, nod, explode, that kind of thing. I'd thought that tapping and holding on the send button would be the way that you would choose to send this at a later date and time, but it isn't. You actually press the plus button on the left-hand side, scroll to the second page, and send later is there, although I can imagine a lot of people would drag this to the first page to use it more frequently. You would then simply choose the date and time that you would like this particular message to send, and then hit the send button. You can see that the message moves into a completely different looking box. The edit button that you can see allows you to edit the sending date and time, or you can tap and hold on the message itself and choose edit to edit the content before you send it. You can essentially lock apps using Face or Touch ID in iOS 18 to ensure that even if somebody gets a hold of your phone, unless they have your passcode or they can enable your Face or Touch ID, they won't be able to open that particular app. The way that you would do this is on the app tile in question, tap and hold on it for just a moment and then choose Require Face ID. You'll see that the next option that appears gives you the choice of either only requiring Face ID, in other words, only locking the app, or requiring Face ID and hiding the app as well. If you do both of these things, you can see that the app will be placed into its own dedicated hidden folder, which is available down at the bottom of the app library. You can't see anything that's in this unless you unlock it with Face ID, and the app information will be obscured at all relevant parts of the iPhone. So to all intents and purposes, the app doesn't exist other than in the hidden album. You could of course simply choose to lock the app with Face ID instead, which means that the app is still very much visible on your device. It just gives it an extra layer of security protection. If you change your mind on any of this, you would tap and hold on the app tile, and you can choose Don't Require Face ID to set this back to normal. The Photos app has had its most significant redesign on the iPhone since the app was originally created. When you open the app for the first time, you'll notice that the app is essentially split into a top half and a bottom half, with the top half more closely resembling the Photos app that you're already familiar with, while the bottom half contains a huge amount of additional options. You have things like pinned collections, which you can modify and include or exclude things as you like. Things like selfies or memories or trips, which is exactly what it sounds like, and will collect together photos and videos from specific trips that you've taken. And it does all of this using on-device machine learning. You've also got a recent day section, which is one that I can see myself using quite frequently, where if you were, for example, viewing photos on a Monday morning when you just got back from a particularly busy weekend, rather than having to go through your photo library and pick out photos and videos from the weekend manually, you can just tap on Saturday, for example, and the app will automatically curate all of those photos together. You can even use the ellipsis menu at the top of the screen to share all of the images from a specific day with the tap of a button, whether this is to a person or to an app or into a shared album, for example. The actual photos layout looks different when you tap on the images, giving you more information about them on the screen, although if you tap again, you will get the full screen view that we're already familiar with. But a feature that I really like here is the filters option, which you can access by pressing the up and down arrow at the bottom left of the main photo view. You can first of all choose to either sort by most recently added or by the date that they were captured. This has been a frustration for a lot of people with the Photos app for a really long time now, so it's good that they've fixed this. But in the filter option, you can choose to only view specific content, like videos or screenshots or images that you've edited, for example. Under View Options, there is an option called Show Screenshots, which by default is enabled, but if you tap this off, your photo library will essentially hide all of the screenshots that you've captured. So if you're someone who knows that you capture a lot of screenshots and you get annoyed by the way that they clog up your photo feed, this would be a really quick way to deal with this, knowing that if you want to quickly access them again, you would simply tap into the View Options and enable Show Screenshots again. Something that iPhone owners, myself included, have wanted for a really long time now is better integration between calendars and reminders, because at the end of the day, these are two apps that perform very similar functions, but have always been completely separate on previous versions of iOS. That changes this year with much better integration between the two apps. So for example, if I'm in the calendar, I can tap and hold on a specific time in the calendar, which would by default generate an event for me. But you can see at the top of the screen that I can toggle between creating an event and creating a reminder. If I choose reminder, the screen then looks very similar to a regular reminders page. So I might say that I want to call John, and I can do things like set the priority level, add any notes, and choose which list I would like this to go into. Once created, it will then show on the calendar as a task for me to complete. I can complete it by tapping the checkbox directly here in the calendar, but if I go into the Reminders app and look at my today list in there, you can see the reminder that we just created. This also works in reverse, so if I'm in the Reminders app and I create a reminder, but I also include a date and time, it will also show on the calendar. This is a feature that's been in paid apps like Fantastical for a while now. Honestly, this might be enough to get me to switch back to just using the calendar and reminders apps here on my Apple device instead. AI is one of the big talking points when it comes to iOS this year, but how do AI and technologies like large language models actually work? That's what I've been exploring these past few weeks thanks to Brilliant, who are sponsoring today's video. Brilliant simplifies complex topics like large language models, math, data analysis, programming, and AI, helping you learn by doing. So when I was learning about LLMs, for example, the platform had me chatting with a large language model because learning by playing with concepts like this is believed to be 6 times more effective than learning simply by watching a video. And the great thing is Brilliant has thousands of lessons just like this across a wide range of topics. It helps build critical thinking skills through problem solving rather than mere memorization, allowing you to gain deeper knowledge and become a better thinker overall. And because of how convenient Brilliant is, you can learn at a pace and schedule that suits you. I've created my own daily learning habit with a spare 5 or 10 minutes every day, time that I probably would have spent doom scrolling anyway, so this feels like a much better use of my time. If this sounds good to you, you can enjoy everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for 30 days by visiting brilliant.org/properhonesttech or following the link in the description of this video, which also gets you a lifetime 20% off the premium account. So there's really no better time to join the more than 10 million existing members and take your knowledge to the next level. One of the most significant changes that Apple discussed this year in relation to iOS is a much more customizable home screen. So if you now tap and hold on the home screen, you'll see an edit button in the top left of the screen. And if you tap on that, you have the option to add a widget, which would have been previously what this button was for, but you can also tap on customize. You can see at the bottom of the screen that you have 4 options to choose from with regard to the color of the apps on the screen. You can choose automatic, where the device will change the color depending on the time of day, essentially mirroring dark mode auto switching. You can specifically choose dark, or you can specifically choose light. And if you choose dark, you'll also notice this sun icon, which if you tap on that, it also darkens the background, which I think looks pretty good. Also, just to point out on the dark mode, it would appear that this is something that app developers are going to have to provide support for by updating their apps, because at the moment, first-party apps look really good in this mode. Third-party apps don't look so good, although I would think that most developers will make the necessary updates over the coming months. The tint option isn't for me personally, I just don't like how it looks, but I know a lot of people are going to love this and have tons of fun playing around with it. This allows you to tint all of your apps with a specific color, so lots of options for you to play around with here. You can also choose between the regular sized icons, which Apple are referring to here as small, which is where you have an app tile and the name of it underneath, or you can choose large, which increases the size of the app tile and doesn't include the text underneath. I've actually found myself more drawn to this view personally. You can also now position apps anywhere that you like on the screen, although this does still seem to be limited to a grid system. So when I say anywhere that you like, there is still some restriction in terms of specifically where you can put things. Also, a genuinely cool feature that I discovered here is that for any apps that have widgets, you can tap and hold on the app tile for a second, and you have this new set of options where you can either choose to keep the app tile as an app tile, or you can choose from a widget size. I love this. I hate the current method of creating widgets. I think this is so much easier, so this is definitely something that I'll be using. The control center has seen an enormous overhaul. This is arguably the biggest change in iOS 18, although you wouldn't necessarily know it when you first swipe into it. It looks very similar at first glance. The first thing that you might notice is these small icons on the right of the screen. I've got a love heart, I've got a music note, which is where all of your music and entertainment control center functions are going to be contained, and I've got an aerial, which is where things like AirDrop, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, mobile data, and all of that associated information is contained. There are other icons here, they'll only show if you include specific things in your control center, I believe. You can swipe through these if you wish to view them. On the main page of Control Center, a couple of things that are new is a power button in the upper right of the screen, and tapping on this will take you to the power off option, so an easier way of getting to that than having to hold down specific buttons. But where the main difference comes in is the plus button in the upper left of the screen. If you tap on this, you can see that you now have a huge amount of customization options of your control center. For a start, you can drag specific control center elements to make them larger or smaller as you wish. You can also move them around directly here on the screen, rather than having to do this in a settings menu and then coming back to view it on this page. If you press the add a control button at the bottom, you can scroll through the entire list of everything that you can add in here. And you can see that the options here are pretty vast, so it would definitely be worth spending a bit of time going through this and looking for something that might be useful to you. If you want to add anything, you would just tap on it, and then you can drag and move it around to change where it appears on the control center, as well as changing its size. I think this is one of those features that may not look all that exciting, but it's going to totally change how we all use Control Center, not least because developers can now include buttons for in here as well, so you can really tweak and customize this how you like it. Most of the major changes that Apple talks about during the keynote this year regarding Safari were over on Safari on the Mac. Safari on the iPhone has seen some improvements over here as well, specifically within the reader view function. So if you're not aware on a website where there's an article, you can tap the reader button in the left of the address bar, which will give you a reader view, a kind of slimmed down, easier to read version of the article, along with some other options. All of these options still exist in iOS 18, but they've been significantly improved in terms of the menu to access them. You can see that on this particular article, I have the option to either show the reader view or to listen to the page up at the top. And if you do this with Siri voice, by the way, it's actually very good. I can translate the page and I can manage the extensions that are running on it. I can change the font size down at the bottom, and the Find Within Page option, which was previously somewhat ironically hidden away, is now easily available down at the bottom left. If I tap on the ellipsis menu down at the bottom right, again, we have a number of options that existed in iOS 17 already, like checking your privacy report, printing the page, adding it as a bookmark, or adding it to a quick note. But everything is collated together in one page, making it much easier to access all of this information. By the way, if you're enjoying the content here, why not consider signing up for my free newsletter, The Proper Weekly? I discuss tech news from the week, share links to content that I've been enjoying, as well as a tip for an item in the Apple ecosystem. The newsletter goes out each Friday, it's completely free, and you can sign up via the link in the description of this video or by scanning the QR code that you can see on screen. In Notes in iOS 17, you have the camera icon just above the keyboard, which you can use to add a photo or video, or scan in a document or scan in text. In iOS 18, this is replaced by a paperclip, and that's because it offers more than just images this time around. You have the same options as you had in iOS 17, but you can also attach a file directly from the Files app into the Note, or you can record audio directly into the Note as well. Once you've recorded this audio, you can then play it here within the Notes app. This by itself isn't that revolutionary. This is something that I've wanted Apple to include in the Notes app for a really long time now, but where I think this is going to get really interesting is when you incorporate Apple's AI features to have these automatically transcribed. Annoyingly, I've seen some other YouTubers who have this working already. I don't know if this is geo-restricted for now, perhaps. It looks pretty flawless where I've seen this working and is a feature that I've wanted in Notes for ages now. Also, when creating a note, if you write a header, then add some text underneath, this creates a collapsible header. While it may not be a particularly exciting update, the Settings app has had a clear out and a bit of a tidy up, with all of the same information showing, but it being sorted in a much more logical and easy to navigate manner now. The quick functions like being able to get to airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and your mobile service still exist, but in iOS 18, when you scroll past that now, you then get to a much better organized collection of settings options, and as you scroll to the bottom of this list, instead of being faced with a seemingly limitless list of apps, you have an apps folder that you can tap into and then search within this folder to find a specific app to change the settings for, making it much easier to navigate your way around the Settings app. On a select range of iPhones, Apple has allowed you to limit the amount of charge that your device takes, automatically limiting it to 80%. This is done to reduce the strain on the battery, with the intention of allowing you to maintain the chemical health for longer and keep your battery running for longer in the long term. This feature still exists in iOS 18, but you now have a bit more granular control over this. If you go into Settings, then Battery, you can then choose Charging, and you can choose from 5% increments to 80%, all the way up to 100%. So there you go, those are the 10 updates in iOS 18 that I'm most excited about, not including any of the AI features of course. We'll talk about that in a separate video. What do you think? Anything here that you're particularly pleased about? What are you annoyed that Apple didn't include? Drop me a comment and let me know. And as ever, if you found this video useful, do please consider leaving me a like and subscribing to my channel for more content like this in the future. See you on the next video.